So welcome everyone, attendees both near and far. My name is Tania Alaby-Varma and I'm a doctoral clinical extern here at Wesleyan University Counseling and Psychological Services Center. I'm delighted to be presenting today's presentation on fostering intuitive eating for mental health. As Angie mentioned, you can always reference our counselors if any type of material is triggering for you. But I look forward to making a presentation that is informative. So today's objectives, we're going to introduce intuitive eating, the benefits of it, what it entails, as well as the 10 principles of intuitive eating. I'll also provide a gentle challenge that you have the ability to either partake in or politely decline. We'll provide a quick wrap up and as well as some resources. So let's dive in. So the definition of intuitive eating, for those of you who are not necessarily familiar with intuitive eating, which is also abbreviated as IE, it's really about a dynamic mind-body kind of self-care eating framework that really integrates both your instinct, your emotion, and your rational thought. So it's very much weight inclusive. It's an evidence-based model. It was actually developed by two nutritionists in 1951, and it has a lot of evidence to support kind of its efficacy for various ranges of populations, which we'll dive into. So it's really about a personal process of honoring your health and paying attention to the messages that your body is providing you, both your physical needs as well as your emotional needs. And it's really, I regard it as an inner journey of self-discovery that really puts you at the forefront and at the center of your eating and your relationship with food. So it promotes a healthier attitude towards food and towards your body image. And it really does that by cultivating attunement and kind of eliminates that all or nothing thinking that some of us may have. So what intuitive eating is not? It is not about eating from external cues. So in regards to any type of food or eating because it's a specific time of day or needing a prescribed amount of calories or saying, I don't want to go over X amount of calories or numbers. Of course, everybody's body is different and there are certain medical conditions, including diabetes and other metabolic disorders that may require a specific regimen. And so it's very important to also consult with your healthcare provider, your primary care, or your specialist. But it's not about necessarily focusing and fixating on calories. It's also not about associating any type of negative emotion, either pre-consumption of food, during the ingestion of food, and post-eating. So there's no guilt or regret or anxiety regarding your intake of food. It's not about connecting your self-worth to your food choices as well. And it's not about deprivation. Should foods, shouldn't foods, overeating, compensating behaviors, none of that. So with intuitive eating, you're not forcing, you're not skipping a meal, you're really being in tune with your own body and your own needs. So forget about the mindless eating in front of a TV. It's also not about that. So the benefits, there are so many benefits to intuitive eating, and I personally have witnessed them myself. It's about really being present and fully immersed in the experience of eating and of tasting your food and enjoying your food. We're not necessarily looking at emotions or social cues or different settings. We're focusing on liberating ourselves from these rigid kind of patterns of thought or externally driven myths or diets or foods. We're really looking to honor our inner clues, to learn to read the signals of our body, to identify our own hunger cues, to shift away from external cues, and any kind of end feelings of deprivation. So in this regard, we reclaim the pleasure in eating, and we have a stronger position to really make decisions about our own health in line with, of course, our primary care's advice and our nutritionist advice if we have one. But we really focus on the foods that will nourish us and that will make us feel good and that, really focus on our wellness. So that's what some of the benefits of intuitive eating. So you may wonder, well, who can benefit from this? Well, the question is, and the answer is very simple. It's everybody and anyone can benefit. People who are looking for a healthier relationship with food, people who may be inclined to do sports and who are athletes, or people who have specific physical demands. Intuitive eating also applies to them. Any individual who's looking to kind of create a healthier relationship with food, finding a balance, and really intuitive eating is considered an essential treatment and also a first phase treatment for those suffering with eating disorders. So it's very encompassing, and it targets a large audience. So here are some basic terms for intuitive eating. We refer to EPR as eating for physical reasons rather than emotional reasons. And this here is, it really kind of, as the title implies, it's not eating for emotional reasons. You're really identifying the emotion that most often leads to unhealthy eating. You're being aware of that emotion and you're honoring it. And you're not acting upon it through food as a coping mechanism. The second term that intuitive eating typically refers to is UPE, which stands for unconditional permission to eat. And this simply means that there's no one forbidden food. So for instance, if you say XYZ food is off my list, you're actually, with intuitive eating, you're actually welcoming the prospect of maybe indulging in that food once in a while and incorporating them back into your daily life. So there's no one particular food that's off bounds. Of course, unless you have a medical condition, a specific allergy, you have to be sensitive to those needs as well. The third term is RHSC, and this simply refers to reliance on hunger and satiety cues. And this is about really developing an awareness and a trust of your own internal hunger and your own satiety signals. It's about tuning into your body, understanding what's going on in your body and honoring that. So there are 10 principles to intuitive eating. And as you can see, they are the ones on your screen. We will jump into each single one of them. So for number one, it's really about rejecting the diet mentality. And what do I mean by this? I simply mean that the ability to work on letting go of the goal of changing your body. It's about focusing on your well-being instead of a specific diet. It's about rejecting the dietal culture and the destructive kind of diets that we've all heard of. And there are so many different ones, right? There's endless trends, it seems. Because those diets essentially are created not only to make money, sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. However, there's a lot of negative consequences when we start restricting a certain type of food in our diet. So again, within the context of your health and of your specific medical kind of condition, you want to consider all the facets of your diet, making sure that you are ingesting a proper amount of nutrients and vitamins and minerals and calories, of course. However, you also want to reject the dieting mentality that certain foods are forbidden and certain foods are not. So in essence, reject the kind of the diet shakes and the weight loss ads that we usually see on covers of magazines. The second principle is about honoring your hunger. And by this, I mean, we humans are born with a natural ability to really determine when we're hungry. And we have the ability to really reconnect with our hunger cues. So in this case, I know for myself, my hunger cue can manifest itself by feeling a little bit lightheaded, or I feel that my stomach is grumbling, or I feel like a lower kind of energy level. That is certainly my hunger cue. And I encourage you to self-reflect upon what your hunger cue is. What are the cues that really kind of ring a bell for you and say, okay, I'm getting hungry at the moment? Take some time to really self-reflect and observe and be in touch with those cues because they're important. So in line with that, with my last kind of self-reflective question, how do you know specifically when it's time to eat? Is it a specific time? Is it a specific sensation or feeling in your body? Do you have any physical signs? Does your desire to eat food increase? Perhaps some foods that may not necessarily have tasted good before to you and that you don't enjoy, you're kind of willing to eat something just because of your hunger levels. So these are all kind of reflective questions to really think upon and incorporate as you increase your level of awareness for hunger and satiety. This is actually a really neat scale. So it's the hunger and fullness scale. And it's basically on a continuum. So number one is you're ravenous, you're dizzy, you just need something in your body. And as you progressively increase to number 10, your level of hunger or satiety will change. So number two, you're extremely hungry, you may be moody, you may have a headache. Number three, your stomach is growling, you are hungry, you need energy. Number four, you're at a place where you could eat, where your stomach feels a little bit empty, but you're kind of on the borderline cusp. Number five, you're neutral, you're content. Number six, you have mild fullness. So your stomach feels full, but you don't feel necessarily satisfied. So there's a little bit of wiggle room to eat. Number seven, you're satisfied, you're a happy camper. If you eat any more, you'll probably feel uncomfortable. Number eight, you feel uncomfortably full. So you feel slightly uncomfortable. You definitely don't want to eat anymore, just because of the feeling that it gives you. Number nine, you feel completely stuffed. And it's kind of like that Thanksgiving Day meal where, you're having that quote unquote, the food coma, as they call it. So you kind of need to unbutton your pants, perhaps, take a little bit of a breather, and you feel uncomfortable and you feel a little bit bloated. And finally, number 10, which is really the opposite of number one, is that you feel physically ill from overeating. You've either binged, you feel nauseous, you feel sick. So all of these numbers are important to consider because they will really provide us with an actual kind of guide as to where we are prior to eating, during eating, and after eating. So I encourage you, as part of our gentle kind of challenge, to incorporate this number line in your everyday life before you eat a meal, to just kind of pause, take a moment and think to yourself, well, where am I on this number line? Identify the number and just be self-aware of it. So honoring your hunger and your fullness really kind of starts before you eat as well as after. So relaxing, we live in a very high-paced society where we're always on the go. We always have something to do. Relaxing before your meals, just taking that pause to really honor your food. And we'll get into looking at, utilizing your senses, but really just enjoying every bite in the process. I know it can be difficult as a doctoral student myself, it's tough. There's a lot going on. We lead busy lives, but I always try to take a little bit of time, even if it's 10 seconds, to just kind of check in with myself and enjoy the process of eating and honoring the food that is nourishing my body. And that can mean as well, being aware of what number you are on the number scale, on the hunger scale, and saying, I'm going to take those leftovers home, or I'm not going to eat right now. I'm going to finish it later when I do have an appetite for the food. So really about establishing boundaries and saying, that's okay, thanks, I've had enough, I'll take it home with me, or I'll eat a little bit later. There's nothing wrong in doing that because you're really in tune with your body. And you know your body more than anybody else knows it too. So the third principle of intuitive eating is called making peace with food. And this is about really giving yourself that unconditional permission to really eat all foods, right? And of course, I mentioned like the medical conditions and the allergies. We need to be mindful of those and we have to be respectful of them. But of course, you can give yourself permission to eat what you want when you want. And there's, of course, a moderation and a context to it. But I want you to really focus on embracing all foods, right? Focus on really refraining from, the good and healthy foods and the bad and unhealthy foods. Things in moderation within context often lead to an increased kind of sense of satisfaction and wellness. So keeping that in mind, making sure that you're at peace with the food that you're eating, that you're not associating it with any kind of negativity. That's important, a very important process in establishing a healthier relationship with food. The fourth principle is about challenging the food police, as they call it. So here, really think of it as like a little devil on your shoulder, right? A little buddy here who's telling you, who kind of imposes these rules and these regulations on you and judges you, and kind of inflicts feelings of guilt and shame. So when you kind of acknowledge the presence I want you to ask yourself, well, first off, is what their voice is what they're saying, is that true, right? Is it research-based? Is it evidence-based? Is it helpful to me? Is it accurate? Is it serving me a purpose? Or is it maybe contributing to my negative relationship with food? And I want you to gently explore the origins of those thoughts. Did they come from your parents? Did they come from a primary care provider? Did you hear it from a friend or a colleague, or somebody who was uninformed? And in turn, once you identify those thoughts and identify the origins, then challenge them, right? Be like your own advocate. Ask yourself, well, is that really true? Does that still stand? Or perhaps I need to kind of reframe my thinking. So the food police is kind of in reference to that. So in line with cognitive reframing, we've all been taught, presumably, that we can kind of see, and I'll take my little glass, the glass either half full or half empty, right? And if we're going to cognitively reframe certain sentences, for instance, I had a terrible week, right? What would be an alternative to that, right? On the half full spectrum, it would be, well, I had some success this week. Maybe it may not have gone as I wanted it, ideally to gone, but I did have some success. I overate so many times. Well, I had many times when I honored my hunger, right? Maybe your body was hungrier that day. Maybe you honored that. That's fine. If, for instance, the thought that all I ate was sweets, okay, maybe you can reframe it by saying I had more sweets than I wished, or maybe that I should have, maybe if you had a medical condition of some sort, but I had lots of healthy foods too. And giving yourself kind of the ability to reframe into a more positive light and make it beneficial for yourself. So if you're thinking, well, I feel so fat, maybe in a different light, you could say, well, I'm feeling a little bit better about myself. And I'm going to keep working towards it. Or I'm such a failure. Well, I'm doing better little by little. And, progress is a process. So reframing certain things. I know that we tend to have a lot of harsh, critical voices that, kind of demand expectations, and we're hard on ourselves naturally, especially at Wesleyan, where it's a rather competitive environment and individuals want to do well. So we see a lot of individuals who are struggling with their kind of own critics, and understanding, being patient with yourself and reframing things in a better light is very helpful. So principle number 5 is really discovering the satisfaction factor. So it can really be helpful to eat nutritious foods. There's no doubt about that. However, when we only focus on choosing those foods based on nutrition, we often forget about the pleasure that we derive from eating. So when we make food choices, I want you to remember to select foods that you actually really want to eat. So kind of keeping that enthusiasm for food, to really tap in with what you enjoy, to make it a pleasurable experience as opposed to kind of just another run-of-the-mill kind of experience. So maximizing your satisfaction is important. So as an activity, I want you to self-reflect on your favorite foods, right? If you think of your favorite food, just, picture it in your mind's eye, picture the details, the texture, the scent, the way it tastes, the way it makes you feel after you ingest it. And also think about your childhood foods, anything that really pops out at you, anything that you love, that you enjoy, that you miss, and try to incorporate those favorite foods back into your daily life. You'd be surprised as to how it really sparks enthusiasm and satisfaction. So tapping in with yourself again, coming back into your body because you know yourself the best. What do you really want to eat? I want you to pay attention to your palate. Pay attention to the different flavors, textures, scents. Engage your senses. Enjoy the experience. And don't settle for diet food. Check in with yourself. Make sure that you know where you stand on the hunger and fullness scale. Know where you stand in terms of your medical conditions, if any. Know what your body needs and treat your body and nourish your body accordingly. So principle number 6 is feel and respect your fullness. Here's a little picture of a stomach on the right, a very happy stomach. And it's about, stopping yourself during meals and maybe asking yourself, well, how full do you feel right now? It's about, being aware, like, have you passed the point of comfortable fullness? Where are you on the hunger fullness scale? Could you eat any more? Have you paid attention to the cues that you're no longer hungry? And really, I can't emphasize this enough. The hunger scale is really a tool that is employed in intuitive eating to raise awareness and to bring yourself back to your internal cues. So definitely utilize it. So feeling fullness. Okay, so here's a little challenge. So I want you to think of any habits that you may have regarding food. And it could be, I don't know, watching TV and eating, right? Sometimes when we're immersed in an external kind of stimuli, we're not necessarily in the moment with our experience of eating. So I want you to challenge yourself to eliminate that distraction. Also, regarding diet rules, if you are necessarily struggling with a specific diet, or you've been told to follow a diet other than by a medical provider or a nutritionist, then maybe you should reconsider it, right? And maybe you should check out more resources of intuitive eating and see if it's a good fit for you. Learn to say no. Learn to question, to research on your own, to take advice from specialists and experts who know what they're doing, as opposed to individuals who are just kind of out there to sell a specific diet and make money. So choosing something satisfying, tapping into being more mindful, these are all important concepts of intuitive eating. Principle number 7 is coping with your kind of your emotions with kindness. So how often do we turn to food to fill an emotional void? How often do you kind of eat emotionally? We need to understand that we are emotional creatures and we have a lot going on in our daily lives, but we can't always be turning to food as a coping tool. So here I have make a list and be proactive, and in the next slide we'll review that. But I want you to think of different ways to really care for yourself without using food, and to brainstorm. So if you have a pen and paper at home, feel free to jot down some ideas as to what that would look like for you. And if you're turning to food very consistently as a coping skill, then please reach out to us. The counseling and psychological services at Wesleyan University, we have fabulous staff and clinicians, and we're always available to help you. And we'd love to be a compassionate kind of partner in your journey of self-discovery and understanding and wellness. So do reach out. So in line with your list, if you need more ideas, alternatives are listed on the right of your screen here. So maybe starting with the ability to really just sit with curiosity and with openness to experience the feelings that you're experiencing in that moment and the emotions, making room for them, labeling them and understanding what you're feeling instead of turning to food. Maybe understanding the origins of the emotions, trying to find that nurturing and that maybe that nature that is very peaceful within yourself, to not turn to food to cope. Maybe calling a friend or a family member, journaling, giving yourself a self massage, or giving yourself a hug, or meditating, or gardening, using a different distractor, reading or watching a movie. I'm just giving some examples. Perhaps it was cleaning your apartment or playing a game or even taking a nap. These are all alternatives that we can incorporate into our daily lives when we feel compelled to turn to food for emotional reasons. So we're shifting gears a little bit to mindfulness. And mindful eating has really been shown to have a huge impact on mental health as well as physical health. So It really promotes an overall feeling of balance and well-being and wellness. And because we live in this kind of multitasking culture and society, sometimes we're kind of puzzled as to like, okay, well, we just ate, but what do we eat, right? We ate it so quickly, we ate it so mindlessly. So really taking the time to be mindful. So what do I mean by mindful eating? Well, it's simply meaning focusing and being aware of your eating and focusing on how you're eating, not necessarily what you're eating, but how, right? The rate at which you're masticating, the way you're swallowing your food quickly, focusing on the sensation of the body while you're eating, becoming aware of the chewing, the swallowing, the tasting of the foods that you're eating, and being aware of your own bodily needs. That's part of mindful eating. So the types of mindful eating are, broken down into 3 types. There's arriving at food, awakening to the food, and tuning into the food. And we'll go over each one. So the first one, which is arriving at your food, it really means becoming aware that your food has come into your personal space. So taking the moment to just sit, it doesn't have to be 30 seconds. It can even be 2 seconds if needed, just before you're eating, to look at your food, to appreciate the colors, the odors, the textures, to realize maybe the human effort that was put in to get your food to you, to imagine yourself eating, to immerse yourself in the process mindfully. That's the first part. The second part is about awakening to your food. And this means paying attention to all its different aspects. So again, the taste and the changes in flavor. Perhaps your food has an aftertaste. Looking at the texture, the aromas, the sounds. Maybe your food is crackling if it's fresh off the oven. Maybe it's sizzling, right? Whatever it is, just being aware of that. So using all 5 senses. And then tuning in. So tuning into your body is about really paying attention to yourself as you eat. Being aware of how many chews it takes to actually chew your food in its entirety. Noticing any emotions that may be arising, making room for them, embracing them. Noticing your physical symptoms and feelings, and not necessarily attributing any guilt or regret, or if you do have any that is lingering, being aware of it. Principle number 8 is about respecting your body. And by respect, I mean treating it with dignity and meeting its basic needs, right? So food is survival. We humans need food, especially athletes, right? They require higher caloric consumption. So it's important to not deprive our bodies of the nutrients and of the nutrition that we need. So body positivity and body love are really synonymous with respecting your body. And I want you to start with respect and appreciation. So look at yourself in the mirror and thank yourself for nourishing yourself. Thank yourself for treating your body with dignity and with love ultimately. So honor all the things that your body does for you, right? It enables you to hug another person. It enables you to walk across the street, to, our bodies are so complex and so intricate, and they're such marvelous machines. We need to really kind of pay tribute to them and treat it properly. And as a quick mention, your body size does not define your worth. And this is so important because not everybody is going to look like individuals on the covers of magazines, right? Those are photoshopped. We need to value ourselves as whatever body shape we are, right? As long as we are healthy, as long as we are following our primary care providers' input and advice and suggestions, we are taking active care of our health, we need to honor ourselves and embrace ourselves and meet ourselves where we are in our process, because it is a process. It doesn't happen overnight. Principle number 9 is all about joyful movement. It's about feeling the difference. So sometimes students exercise out of punishment, or individuals in general exercise out of punishment to themselves, right? They're exercising with the intent of really changing their body. Or sometimes it's even out of like obligation and it becomes like a compulsion. But these are really not great and healthy motivators. I really want you to tap into the intrinsic motivators, that you're doing it for your health. You're doing it because It is beneficial to your overall well-being. It provides balance in your life. It makes you feel good. There's a whole bunch of cognitive and physiological benefits to exercise that often go overlooked. So I want you to focus on movement that really makes you feel good. Focus on exercise that really kind of that you enjoy partaking in. It doesn't have to be intense. It doesn't always have to be sweat inducing. It can be a simple walk, a yoga session. It could be vacuuming your house or cleaning your house, gardening, hiking, swimming, kayaking, grocery shopping, going to the mall. Now with COVID, it's a little trickier, but it's just about joyful movement, feeling the difference and feeling and reaping the benefits of movement. So movement is separate from weight loss, and there's a very big distinction here. And movement does not equate weight loss all the time. Movement should be viewed as an essential component into your daily life. If you can, take the stairs instead of an elevator, and this is especially true right now with COVID, but park a little bit further and get those extra steps in. You'll be pleasantly surprised that your body, your spine will thank you. It's good for your musculature. It's good for the fresh air that you're breathing, and avoid kind of the mind games that sometimes come along with movement. So I sometimes hear individuals saying, well, it's not worth it, or I really don't have time to spare, or, you know, if I don't sweat, it doesn't really count. No, that's not true. Little things do add up and make a huge difference, and any movement is good movement. So make it fun, make it a priority, and make it sustainable for yourself. Try incorporating it every day. The last principle of intuitive eating is all about honoring your health and your nutrition. So there's no such thing as a perfect diet, right? It all depends upon your unique self, and we're all very unique in terms of what our bodies need, what our activity levels are, our pre-existing medical conditions, our allergies. Some individuals have intestinal disorders. So there's no such thing as a perfect diet per se. However, when we are aware of what our body needs, and we've consulted a healthcare provider, and we know the limitations to perhaps our condition and how to best manage it, and when we make food choices that really honor our physical and mental health, our taste buds, and our lifestyle as well, we start becoming more in line and in balance with ourselves. And so we start to develop a healthier relationship with food. So I challenge you to eat with a little bit more curiosity, to eat with self-compassion, to know that you are nourishing your body in the best way possible in that moment. And you're mindful in eating it. And so that in itself, when we don't have a presence of an emotion and we are engaging in eating with the intention of nourishing ourselves, it can go a very long way. So working with your body, it means eating well, eating joyfully, trusting your internal regulators to really guide you into what you want to eat and how much you want to eat. If in any way you feel like you're struggling with it, please consult a professional in the field of health, whether it be a PCP, a nurse, you're a specialist, a psychologist, a CAPS. We also provide services and referrals to the community as well. So in addition to that, moving your body in a way that is really enjoyable and that you can sustain on a regular basis, choosing your nutritious foods, giving those healthy food choices and regular movements basically priority, and embracing the process of how your body will, evolve, developing that loyalty, that respect, that appreciation for your body, and not postponing living your ideal self and your ideal life until you've reached that ultimate weight, whatever it may be, or that look, or whatever you are, idealizing in the moment. I want you to meet yourself where you are. And most importantly, being kind, being gentle, and being patient with yourself are key. So I know I've kind of sprinkled a couple of gentle challenges throughout the PowerPoint. However, I want you to pick one and perhaps write it down for yourself. I know you all have busy schedules. So some ideas are listed here. Perhaps you want to incorporate, I don't know, maybe eating more mindfully, eating with less distraction. If you have a habit of eating breakfast while you're on your cell phone, responding to emails, maybe putting the phone down and focusing on your meal. Perhaps cultivating more mindfulness, using a daily body affirmation, utilizing the hunger fullness scale, showing some love and some respect for your body by engaging in joyful movement. These are all ideas to engage in the simple and in the gentle challenge. And most importantly, it's important to remember that it's really a process, that we need and must be gentle with ourselves. We need to be patient with ourselves. We need to know that it's not overnight, right? Your relationship with food doesn't change overnight, and it wasn't certainly built overnight. We need to notice the small improvements. We need to celebrate them. We need to empower ourselves, and we need to empower others. So use compassion, use self-talk, positive self-talk. Encourage yourself, incorporate your self-care, and give yourself credit for the effort and the work that you're doing, because every little thing counts. So helpful resources, you have access to 24/7 support, of course, at CAPS. Please call us anytime, 860-685-2910. We also can provide referrals for individuals who are looking for a little bit more support on a weekly basis. We have a CAPS on call service, which is available from 3:30 p.m. to 8:30 in the morning. So again, 24/7, same numbers, 860-685-2910. We also have crisis appointments available. So if you call in the morning, typically we'll try our best to incorporate you during the day. And public safety, the crisis text line, the Middlesex ER, and of course the National Suicide Prevention Line. So you have a whole bunch of resources available to you here. Additional resources for extra support if you are interested in intuitive eating. I found a couple of support groups online that are free, that you can connect with individuals who partake in intuitive eating. So feel free to use this slide as a resource. Here are my references, and I thank you for participating in this Zoom webinar. I hope it was informative. I hope it was helpful for you. Stay well, stay safe, and stay healthy. Thank you.